Good morning and welcome to SFI Live. We've got a special for you this month. We are doing a self and custom build special to help you become the perfect broker in the sector. So we are really excited about this. We've got some great guests coming up for you today and we'll be switching out. We're just going to wait for a few more people to arrive. But just while we wait for them, the chat box on the right-hand side is your chance to put your questions to our panel. So make the full use out of it. Pop along, pop any questions you have, any comments on anything we've said, do feel free to pop it in there and we will move on. We're just waiting for a few more, right?
Jay, just to prove we're live, I've just had a message saying can't get in. They've sent me a screenshot saying this webinar has expired.
That's bizarre.
Hence maybe why we've only got 15 guests. So I'm not sure there's anything we can do to people trying to get in.
I'll tell you what we'll do while I'm doing the tech side. Let's go around and do introductions. So we'll start with someone people perhaps already know. So start with you, Tony, and then we'll move on to our guests in a second while I try and fix the problem.
Lovely. Morning, everybody. My name's Tony Hall. I'm head of business development here at Saffron. My role is, as we are 100% intermediated lending, is to make sure that our intermediaries get the access to the products and the criteria and the services they need in order to deliver what they need for their clients.
Thanks, Tony. And we are honoured to have two special guests for the first half of the webinar. These two gentlemen work for NaCSBA. I won't go into too much detail about them because you're going to talk about who they are in a second, but let's go around the room and just do a short introduction. Let's start with Peter. Peter, good morning.
Good morning, Jay. Peter Johns, CEO of NaCSBA. Been in the role for 4 months following Andrew's tenure of 3-4 years. I think Andrew was CEO, and delighted that Andrew decided that he wanted to continue with NaCSBA in the role of policy director, which he'll talk about in a second as he introduces himself. My involvement with the self-build market started 25 years ago when I launched a magazine called Self-Build and Design. Joined the NaCSBA board about 6 years ago, more recently sold the magazine and associated shares and websites, which freed me up to take on the CEO role at NaCSBA.
Great stuff. Welcome, Peter. And Andrew, you had a little semi-introduction there. Andrew, nice to see you. A little introduction from you, please.
Yeah, hi, Andrew Badley-Chappell. Most people call me ABC. I'm the policy director at NaCSBA. I spent 25 years at Nationwide Building Society, and I was also the chair of the Bank of England Residential Property Forum. But now I'm in as Peter said, in a semi-retired status, but still as passionate about housing and the finance and mortgage industry as I ever was.
Well, we could have two more credible guests to talk about self and custom build, that's for sure. So just for the audience, the first half of the webinar, so for this section, we'll be with the guys from NaCSBA. Joining us about halfway through will be Mike Pawley. We'll introduce him a little bit later on. But first of all, let's talk a little bit about the market. The reason the gentlemen are here is because we'd like to talk about what innovation there was happening, what the guys do, what people should look out for. And if you're a broker in the audience and you're thinking to tap into this market, this webinar is supposed to, and hopefully will, give you all the education you need to help you to tackle that market. But Tony, just before we hand over to gentlemen to field some questions to them, just explain Saffron's self-build proposition, why it's important to you as a lender, and what you offer.
Yeah, gosh, there's a test for me there, isn't there? What we offer. So we're passionate about self-build. We've been doing it for many years, and we really enjoy this market. So in essence, our proposition spans both self-build and custom build. And we will now brokers can now source our products up to 3 million as standard, and we will go beyond 3 million, but we may bespoke the price or the rate after that point. So we're extremely flexible. We're really excited about it. I've literally just had an email this morning from one of my BDMs, very excited because we have offered on £4.5 million worth of self-build today. So that's a great day for us, and long may that continue. Gosh, don't ask me about the kind of products we do because I'll get it wrong and then Holly will shout at me later. But we are very comfortable with a complete ground up build. We're very happy with a build or buy the land and knock down and rebuild, barn conversions, and also heavy refurbishments. So we're really comfortable with whatever project the self-builder has. We are very happy to support that.
Great stuff. Let's move on to the two special guests then, I think. We'll crack through some questions. If you have any questions based on what we discussed with Peter and Andrew, do feel free to pop them in the chat room. And if we get a chance and we've got enough time, we'll get your questions answered. But first question from me, how does the UK and custom build market compare to other countries? Andrew, I'm going to come to you for that one.
Well, so we've got a real problem here in the UK. So the first thing is that according to Home Builders Federation, who are the trade business for the large builders, only 33% of people ever would consider buying a new build home. And that's just terrible. I mean, can you imagine only a third of people wanting a new car or a new phone or new clothes? And the main reason why that number's so low is because the quality of the homes in terms of their design, their value, their build quality that are produced in the UK is so poor. And one of the reasons why it's so poor is because there is so little competition within that market. If you look to the UK, across into Europe, around 50% on average of new homes are self-commissioned. That is, they're built to the design and specifications of the customer. If you go to Germany, for example, there's a single website called Musselhaus.net. And if you go there, it says choose from 2,300 different designs from 350 different companies. That is the start of your home building journey. And through that choice comes innovation, competition, quality, design. You get more homes that more people want to see built. And only when more people aspire to live in new homes will we see more support for those homes being built across the country. So it's entirely normal everywhere else, in Japan, America, Canada, the rest of Europe. It's exactly the norm. Here in the UK, it's only around 15,000 homes. That's somewhere between 5 and 7% of homes are built to the customer's design and specifications. So we are a massive outlier. And unfortunately, we think that our housing market is normal, but it is far from that.
That's a huge difference. I hadn't realized it was so dramatic, such a dramatic difference. So, Peter, coming to you, tell me a little bit about what NaCSBA does as an organization and sort of give the brokers a bit of an insight into you guys.
Okay, so really a straight follow-on from what Andrew's saying, our mission, if you like, and I'm not a great fan of mission statements and the like, but it actually captures it quite well. It is to make custom and self-build a mainstream choice for everyone, because I think a lot of people understand self-build from Grand Design's TV program, which has been a double-edged sword, I think, for the industry. It's put self-build on the map, but we worry at times that it conveys a picture of you can only do it if you've got vast budgets, you have half a dozen family traumas during it, and you go way over budget and it all goes wrong. That is not the norm. We ran a survey last year of self-builders and something like 1,000 replies. And the overwhelming evidence was that people actually really enjoy the process. And would you do it again? I think the figure is something like 98% of people would say they would do it again. Wow. Would you recommend it to a friend? Yeah, unquestionably. Again, really high percentages. So when people do engage with it, they really like it. So it's all about, our objective is to try and make it a mainstream choice. And we've been running as an association for about 10 years, just over. Started as the National Self-Build Association. Custom build is a new concept to the UK, at least, or relatively new, that is trying to broaden those choices even further for individuals. Because I think one thing that is worth saying, some people get the view as well that self-build is the man or woman rolling up the sleeves and doing the physical building. actually what most self-builders are project managers, and many people in ordinary walks of life are project managers. If you're a school teacher or whatever it might be, you're managing projects. So that's NaCSBA's aim. We're a membership association, relying on our members to help us drive the sector forward. That obviously feeds back to giving them more business. But at our heart, it's about driving the sector forward. Initially through a lot of policy work, through Andrew has been particularly instrumental over the last 3 or 4 years in that. But before him, other people, Michael Holmes as the previous chair, did an awful lot. So that's what we're about. Hope that sort of captures it in a nutshell.
That was brilliant. And interestingly, it leads quite nicely on to the next question. So, Andrew, I presume that your work can influence things like planning and make it easier for those that have that aspiration to build a home. Your work has made that process easier. You're saying it's not a big area for us in the UK, but that growth requires change, and I presume you have an influence on that.
We do, but it's a tough battle. Persimmon makes as much in a day as we get to run our organisation for a year. That's the scale of the challenge, if you like, of trying to drive change against a very set industry that's highly profitable with very deep roots and a long track record. So we are fighting. We're unique actually in terms of fighting to make that happen. So there's no other organisation that is trying to make us change. And as I said earlier, this is probably the single largest difference between our economy and those of most of the countries we face with. We're trying to attract knowledge and brain power and value into the country. And then we're saying, come to this country and live and carry out these exciting creative industries, and then go home at the end of the day to your disappointing house in your disappointing setting, but be inspired, and homes should inspire us. They should make us better as people. They should make the planet better. 50% of all self-builders have used modern methods of construction. 50% have a sustainable heat source at the core of their home. That just doesn't exist in the mainstream, but it's not because people don't want it. It's because we're not given the choice. So that's what we're about. But there are big constraints. The way we build is increasingly complex. There's new regulation. It's increasingly on large sites. So the percentage of homes built on small sites has halved in the last 10 years. And the planning system is under huge pressure. And of course, individual people trying to do something different through that, therefore can face a difficult journey. So we're very much at the forefront. Part of the big constraints are land, planning and finance. Those are the big constraints, and we're taking action on all of those. And every time we make progress, we never go back. Do you know what I mean? You can't believe, and I don't think any of us could envisage a world where, as technology comes about, homes don't become easier to design on computers, easier to make bespoke. Look what's happened in the car industry in the last 30 years. All that is possible in homes, and that's the kind of change we're trying to deliver.
Great stuff. We're going to come back to you on that in a second, Andrew, with another question. But Peter, just coming to you really quickly, you mentioned your member organisation. Is that your source of funding? Where do you get your funding from to operate?
Yeah, so far our funding has really largely been our membership income. We're trying, there are two sort of caveats in that. One, a big part of my role is to try to broaden our income stream. So just a little quick plug, the data I was referring to earlier, you're probably not seeing that on my blurred screen here.
There we go, just about, there we go, perfect.
There we go. So that was our first annual report that we published last year. I think it's, I'm biased, but I think it's cracking value at £295. If you're serious about the market, the amount of data and analysis that is in there is phenomenal. So we're trying to build on that to generate some other income streams, because as Andrew said, we run on a tiny budget. I think we punch well above our weight, but that's a real challenge to support our members and get the members to support one another, and hopefully drive our membership income at the same time, develop some other products. And then one other plug, something that the association has been very effective at, is we established a task force, the Right to Build task force, that followed the Right to Build legislation. So do just search for Right to Build task force, initially funded by the Nationwide Foundation, followed more recently by what is now Department for Levelling Up Homes and Communities, or something similar to that. I can never quite remember it. They provide funding for a task force that essentially advises local authorities on how to implement the legislation. So that is all very specific, tied at the heart of it. We're a membership association and reliant on our members for support.
Thank you. Just so everyone knows, when we put the webinar up on YouTube, I'll put all the relevant links to NaCSBA and to the report and various other things, so you can get access to everything Peter just said. We'll give you links to all of that so you can find your way there. So Andrew, you were talking about some of the work you've been doing and some of the work you've done previously, and obviously you the previous incumbent. Tell us about some of the successes you've had to influence the sector, some of the projects and policies you worked on.
So the first and most important one is the right to build. So this is primary legislation that says every local authority must maintain a register of everyone who wants to self-build a home, and for everyone that joins that register within 3 years, they must make sure that a plot is permissioned. Not a specific plot for that person, but the demand must be matched by plots that are permissioned. Now, local authorities are finding very good ways to avoid that, and the government is tightening up on things as we speak. But that's a key step. There's some other really important steps for you to be aware of. So a self-build is exempt from the community infrastructure levy. So on a house of, say, £1 million, large value house, that could be saving you £40,000 if you're in a SIL charging authority. There is the boiler upgrade scheme, so the new introduction of heat pumps. So uniquely, if you are self-building your new home rather than buying it from a builder, if you put a heat pump in, you will gain from the subsidy under that scheme of £5,000 to £6,000. So those are all examples of where specifically the market is helping. And of course, by providing mortgage finance, you're actually putting finance in at a rate that is cheaper than the builder themselves can get access to their own development finance. So that is helping you and the builder, if you're the self-builder, get a great price. And what I would say is, at the end of that process, a self-builder typically gets a home that is worth more than the amount that they paid for it. Whereas if you buy a new build home, you instantly get a home that is actually worth less than the amount you actually paid the developer for it. And that's really important, because that impacts the quality and the confidence that people like Saffron have when they lend into this sector.
That's great. Thanks, Andrew. Any questions, guys? We're running out of time with the two gentlemen. So if you've got any questions you want to put directly to Peter or Andrew, do pop it in the chat box now, and we'll put those questions to the gents before they leave halfway through. So final question from me, Peter, before we go into a wider conversation. What does the future look like for NaCSBA? What's in the pipeline? What's coming up? What can people expect to see from you?
Okay, so I think, again, this follows naturally from what Andrew's just said, that a lot of that policy work has been done. Like any new legislation, it requires refining and tweaking because people find ways around it. Particularly, and Andrew mentioned earlier, the challenge of the large house builders who would, I think it's fair to say, rather the custom and self-build wasn't around. It's a bit of a thorn in the side at times. So we have to keep pushing and working with local authorities as well to try and get that implemented by the spirit as well as the letter of the law. But I think our challenge really, we've won a lot of those arguments. I think custom and self-build is slowly becoming very much mainstream and in people's thinking. So our challenge is very much moving on to supporting the delivery of self-build, which throws up, as I say, challenges to make sure that the legislation is implemented in the way that it was always intended. So plenty of challenges still, but actually quite an exciting time for the market.
I've got a quick question, Jay. Is that all right?
Yeah, carry on.
I'm interested, chaps, to understand what lenders can do to support you more.
Andrew, that's probably one for you with your background, but
I think the first thing is obviously it's really great where lenders like Saffron support our work. So I mean, you get a lot of leverage out of it. There's something very core to building societies about this. Do you know what I mean? It's back to the very roots of why societies were established, and I think that building society, even Saffron, which operates through an intermediary network relatively nationally. I mean, I think it's creating that knowledge and awareness through to your own communities. Write to your members and tell them about the opportunities that exist. Encourage and support in your local area developments on a let's get away from this NIMBYism. Let's talk about gentle densification, gentle expansion of towns and communities, the way that it used to happen by homes that are wanted at the edge of that. I think it's being brave in that debate about housing, facing up to it and saying, we need new houses. We're something like 1 million homes short since 2007 of the number that we should have delivered. And if we're going to have those homes, let's have the best possible homes in the best possible way. So I think it's being an active part of that debate and trying to get over this message that I said at the beginning, that this is normal everywhere else. Do you know what I mean? There's something quite Soviet in our way of thinking. We know our new homes are bad, but we think that's the only world that exists. And the answer is it doesn't. Nowhere else in the world is this unique issue being faced. So it's kind of just open your eyes, be brave about it. Think, Richard Bacon, when he wrote his report sponsored by the Prime Minister, said that new homes are viewed on as pollution. And that shouldn't be the case. New homes should be beautiful, wonderful additions, and they can be. So I think, all of you out there, I'm sure all of you, if you had the choice, would choose to have a home built to your design and specifications. Every time we ask people, this is what they want. And just come away from today with a little bit of a thought of thinking, that is increasingly possible. And if I believe it and do something about it and argue for it, and everyone on this call speaks their chums in the pub and says, look, guys, have you ever thought what your home would be? Then together, I think we can make a difference. That would be my message to us all. Let's think of homes as wonderful things, not as pollution.
Just very quickly, Jay, I'd sort of follow that on and say, echo all of that. And I'd say, Tony, let's have some dialogue about how Saffron and NaCSBA can work together on that. One of the things that I'm pushing very much is we are a membership association, so let's work together and take maybe follow us up after this session at some point.
I'd love that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Love that. Well, gentlemen, thank you. I know you've touched on something. We talk about this often, and I would love to build my own home. I've always been a bit, until I started working with Saffron, I was like, that's impossible. And again, Peter, you touched on it. I watch Grand Designs and think that's what a self-build is. You don't think of it on a smaller scale. You just sit out and see the hell that they go through and think, do I want to put myself through that? And it's nice to know that the market is easier than that. And I'm sure there's some brokers sitting in the audience that now are going to go away and think, Is my next home a self-build? Perhaps it is. One quick question. We've got a couple of minutes. One quick question, because it comes up every time we cover self and custom build. Can you just do a very brief introduction to what a custom build is as opposed to a self-build? So perhaps, you know, you were saying earlier, Andrew, about, you know, these custom builds that are available in other countries, but is that available to us here? What sort of thing can we expect to see if you were looking at a custom build in this country?
Yeah, so typically a self-build is an architect designed individual home where the parties are different. A custom build is often on a multi-plot site where the person, there's a kind of design and build process. So a combined process of design and build. Sometimes that includes everything. Sometimes it involves leaving a shell and you put in what you want. So it's a way of decreasing the riskiness and the amount of decisions you have to make and increasing the certainty, but losing an element of choice within that. So a really good example, if you want to look at the UK, is a firm called Damwood. They're based in Poland. They're NaCSBA members. If you go on to their site in the UK, you'll be able to see set designs and specifications. You'll also have seen lots of them in the previous edition of Graven Hill, because they built a lot of their homes there. But that's an example of what you can see. In Germany, there's more of them. You know, here's a magazine for a German Hansa house. This is their German.
Blimey. Look at the size of it.
That is
wow.
that is just the starting point.
Wow.
For that, every house is then individually developed out of that. But that's so you want to see the full set, try Hansa House. If you want to see a UK version, which is still great, try Damwood.
Brilliant. So I'm going to put the links in with the YouTube channel for sure. Sorry, Peter.
No, that's fine. I was just going to again extend that a little bit. Custom build. There are a number of different models of custom build around, but at the end of it, it's all about giving consumers greater choice. And as Andrew said, custom build can de-risk it a little bit from the typical self-builder of the past who would take absolutely everything on. It's something, a custom build will tend to be someone holding the hand a little bit. And then one other little wrinkle in that is something called service plots, which tend to get lumped with custom build, but actually are perhaps nearer to self-build. They are multi-plot sites, typically, where all the services are in, but you're on your own then. So it's just another little model for giving people that greater choice.
Peter, while you're talking, just deliver your website address just for the audience, please.
Just nacsba.org.uk.
Easy as that. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time this morning. That was really informative. I learned something. I'm sure the brokers did too. So thank you. I really appreciate it. And I hope you'll come back in a few months' time. Maybe we could talk about what this year's looked like for the self and custom build market. But for now, thank you so much for your time. It's been really, really informative. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Andrew.
See you again. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, so it's just me and you left now, Tony. No, joking. So we've got another guest coming up, actually, who we are just going to bring on, so just bear with me. So one of you guys, so for the brokers in the audience, this gentleman is a broker when he finally arrives on screen. So Mike Pawley's joining us from Mayflower Mortgages. And this time we're going to make it much more focused on actually the broker-lender relationship. So, Tony, you can have a chance to chat. That was really informative from the two gents. Really good.
That was brilliant.
And I really like the fact that we can have that relationship with the lender that, you know, they can help to drive policy and drive it forward. And just like that, there's Mike. Mike, welcome.
Morning.
How are we doing? You all right?
Yeah, good, thanks. Good to listen to Peter and Andrew.
I think it's quite useful you being in the audience, actually, for that, to then come in for your part, because we can kind of follow it on and give it from your perspective as well, which is good.
Yeah, and we could talk about this all day, honestly. You know, I love it, and it's what we do every day. So the custom build element and where the market's going, we're probably at the cutting edge of that. We're working with developers, and we're seeing changes from developers who are approaching us to ask us the question about, what's this custom build stuff? How does this work? So we've got 4 developers at the minute that have come to us that are changing schemes that were original ground up deals to sell as new builds to now be custom build sites, because it de-risks. There's no build out cost for them. They're just putting a service plot in. That they're sold nice and quickly. It's less finance cost for them. And obviously the risk with material prices increasing over the last 12, 18 months, it's getting more popular. And obviously there's government legislation as well that the guys touched on, which is looking to drive this space. So I do think it's going to, the government want to double the space in the next 2 or 3 years to 30,000 homes. So what we're seeing from developers, I think that's going to be achievable for sure.
Do you do a quick introduction to Mayflower for us? Just tell, because if anyone doesn't know who you are, I'm sure a lot of them do, but if they don't, maybe just an introduction to Mayflower, your experience and what you've been up to.
Yeah, so I'm Mike Pawley. I'm the MD at Mayflower Mortgage and Finance, and we help brokers help your clients fund their self-build mortgage properties. The business was started B2C. So we've worked with customers directly, and I'll just dive into a bit of detail, if you like, of why I got into self-build.
Go ahead.
Years ago, how many years ago? 2014 now. And we got approached by brokers about 18 months ago. We started getting more inquiries from brokers asking us to help them with their clients, and we didn't really have any distribution on. We weren't working with brokers, but it sort of sparked the thought to put a panel of lenders together to be able to help brokers. So we've done that, and we've launched the sort of Mayflower Mortgage and Finance for Brokers part of the business. And the guys can find that. It's mayflowerforbrokers.co.uk. You can pop on there. There's loads of free resources that we can talk about in a sec that will help people when they get in the early stages with their customers. The reason I got into self-build is me and my wife did one in 2014, and I was a broker at the point for nearly 4 years, so like three and a half years, just over 3.5 years, and I didn't have a clue how to get it funded. Didn't have a clue, honestly. And I was working estate agency led, didn't know anything about it, but I've always loved property, and it intrigued me to find out more about it. So going through that journey obviously helped me learn, and then I went off and worked for somebody else who probably most people know on the call, to really get a good level of knowledge. I went on construction courses and sort of prop my knowledge up, and then started the business, because I think not necessarily just for clients, but there's lenders that needed an option to work with a broker that sort of understands the space, not necessarily from the finance point of view, but the construction process and the journey and how you need to tailor that. So that's why I got into it.
So actually, you got in because of your personal experience, but actually, that's a common theme. What you just said there is a common theme we get in our communications. We get a lot of people saying, "Well, I just don't understand it. I don't know how it works. I don't really get it." So you did that firsthand. So how is? Let's talk about the financing for a minute. And Tony, we can bring Tony into the conversation as well. But just talk about the financing of a self-build and the processes. So there will be brokers sitting in the audience going, I just wouldn't even know where to start. So maybe we can start from scratch and give them a bit of an insight into what it feels like as a broker.
The main difference between placing a self-build case and a standard residential mortgage case is the project. So for us, the first sort of 3 or 4 fundamental things we need to understand are not about the client. They're about the project. And we do have a page on the website which might help some of the guys on the webinar if you just want to get a feel for what are those important things. It's got nothing to do with what you would normally expect on a standard mortgage. So the first 3 things would be the 3 C's, what we call them anyway: construction type, cash flow, and the costs. And all 3 of those things will impact each other. And what you will normally find is a client will come and speak to you really early doors to get a feel of how that's going to work. They won't have the answers to those types of things. And that's where having the knowledge can really help make or break a project. Because, for example, you probably find this quite a lot if the guys are getting a lot of inquiries. People don't have a clue about build costs at early stages, and they're really unrealistic. So you work on the unrealistic figure if you're not too sure of it, and then later down the line it all falls apart because their build costs aren't right and the finance doesn't fit. They can't build how they want to build, etc. and the fourth one of the four is the project management. So those are the four things we're more worried about before we even look at the normal traditional fact find. The way the finance works, it is regulated in the same way. The product is set up in the same way, in the sense that you'll have a mortgage term, you'll have the product term. The concession, the differences will be there's a concession in most cases for most lenders for interest only during the bill period. All of the funding's agreed at the outset based on the overall project figures, and lenders will want to make sure that the project costs are covered. So savings and loan need to equal the full amount of the project. Lenders don't want to part fund a deal. They want to make sure it's they've got a security at the end of it, but the funding will be released in phases throughout the build as it moves forward. And that's where the important thing around cash flow and understanding how the build process works and how the construction mechanism impacts that cash flow requirement, as does the project management. Because you could get a lender that will agree enough for the client overall based on the high level numbers, but actually the way that product releases funds doesn't meet how that project is being built or managed. And that's the important thing, I think, where we can really help support brokers, because we understand that process and we can help guide them to guide their clients really to get to a successful conclusion on the deal, or even get a deal started. Sometimes it falls apart because it doesn't look like it works when it can, if we slightly tweak those things.
So there's got to be a really strong relationship between the broker and the lender, isn't there? The lender's got to be actively involved in this and have an understanding as well. So Tony, from your perspective, I presume you have underwriters that are specialists in this area that understand.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we have one that's extreme, that it's kind of been with us since the start of our self-build journey, and she is, there's not, I don't think there's anybody better in this market that understands how to underwrite a self-build, but we're building the capability throughout the team. So we've now got, I think, probably 5 of our 8 underwriters who I would say are very strong in this, in understanding this. And as I said, we all love it because it's such an exciting thing to underwrite and look and see how people are building. It isn't just a basic, but as Mike said, all those things, even before you think about actually the house, are really important. And the funding model, I got asked earlier and I had brain freeze and couldn't remember actually what our products were. So to give oh, here comes Holly. She could say
I did that deliberately. I saw where the conversation was going, and I thought I'm going to bring Holly a little bit early. I actually
know the answers, so yeah, but Holly can.
I'll keep quiet.
Holly can nod if I get it wrong. But look, we have 2 ways of doing this. One is we're lending 65% of the purchase price or the land, and then 100% of the build cost. But that's subject to an overall gross development value of 75%. So that's the whole project. Or we're doing 80%, 80% of the purchase, 80% of the costs, to a maximum 80% of the GDV. So there's different ways of doing that. And as Mike was on about releases of funds as the stages change, this is an important bit, as he said, because some lenders will do it in quite prescriptive drawdowns. We don't have that. We have a very flexible approach, and we'll do as many or as few as the developer, the builder needs, quite frankly. I think I've got all that right, Hol.
I'm impressed. I invited Holly on because I didn't know whether you were ready to impact you there, Tony. You did really well.
Amazing thing called an iPad, isn't it?
You shouldn't have revealed your secrets. We'd have been super.
Yeah, so we'd have been super impressed. Mike, so one of the conversations we had with the gentleman before was that, you're watching grand designs and things don't always go to plan. So there will be hiccups, there'll be issues along the way. There's quite a lot of mitigation of these things that must be in place to try and keep that project online. And obviously you then got to be with the lender and get the funding at the right point. So as Tony said, with his flexible approach, how does that work with a more rigid approach? Surely there's a lot, you have to rely on that project manager pretty heavily.
So all the lenders we work with work in a similar way, because it makes sense. If the value's there and it's release funds, everyone's invested in the project. There's There are lenders out there though that will have very what's the word I'm looking for? They'll have firm drawdowns. So the sense that at the beginning of the process, you need to know what you will have at each phase, and the lender will not release funds until you're at that point in time. Like I said, none of the lenders we work with will work like that, because it tends to cause more issues than it solves.
So you've obviously made a name for yourselves in the sector, and you obviously work with other brokers, which is brilliant. So you're giving brokers the support and the things they need. What advice could you give the brokers that are in this market to sort of tap into it? How can they market themselves? How do they let people know this is something they can do? Especially as the gentleman was saying, there's quite a drive to get that percentage of self and custom builds up. What advice can you give them to push that message out?
It's a tough one because it is quite a niche area. So you're not going to be inundated with self-build inquiries, I would imagine, if you are, if you're a broker that deals with more traditional side of things. And if you don't do that many of them, it is a bit more, or it feels a lot more complex maybe than what it is if you're dealing with it on a daily basis and you get hundreds of inquiries every month. Obviously for me, vested interest would be nice if the brokers wanted to do business and they didn't fully understand the self-build case and they wanted to give their client the best journey, go over to the Mayflower for Brokers site. We'll work with brokers in two ways. And it's surprising at the minute actually how the balance is weighed. You could refer over your customer to us. We've got a 5-star direct team. You'll be copied in all communications. We have a portal that's completely transparent, so you can view your case from initial call through to bill completion at any point in time and log into that portal. We'll even give you a reporting suite if you're popping over, a fair amount of leads. On the referral basis, we'll do everything for the broker. We'll, as our direct client, we don't make any contact post build, so it's always the introducing broker's client, and we'll pay the introducing broker 30% of our gross distribution fee, so a minimum of 0.24% just for an introduction. And the other way we'll work with brokers, if they're not too comfortable to place the case themselves and they just want a bit of support from a team that do this every day, is our packaging service. And we'll split our distribution fee 50-50 with that introducing broker, and we'll literally guide you from that initial call all the way through to bill completion.
Sounds great. So just really quickly, if anyone's got any questions for Mike, we've got a couple of minutes left while he's on screen, so make the most of it. If you're wondering why Holly's joined us, your criteria clinic is coming up shortly. So if you've got any questions on current cases or want to talk about a potential case, then get your questions in the chat room ready for Holly. The fountain of information that she should be answering those. So any questions for Mike? Tony, are you going to say something?
No, I was just going to say, just following on from everything that Mike and Andrew and Peter said, that interestingly, we're getting more and more inquiries for self-build from brokers that have not done it before. So clearly we've got some way to go to get that 7% to 50% in the market, but it is definitely a growing trend. And Mike's right, most brokers that have never done it are fearful of it. So I think the reminder is, look, there's Mike and Mayflower, there are others out there that can support as well. Or there's the lenders like ourselves where you can come direct to us. Our BDMs will massively help you through the journey. We love these because we get a real buzz of getting a deal agreed and then seeing them built. It's really exciting, and Holly can talk you through some of the grand design ones we've actually done, because we have done grand design properties, but we've
got one here at the minute, Tony, actually.
Sorry, mate.
We've got one being built with you guys at the minute. It's
That's
a big old unit. We're doing a YouTube series with that guy as well. So we're going to go up and do an interview. And
fantastic.
I'll ping it.
Can we have a conversation offline, please?
Sorry. Yeah. Off piece, but you've done some.
Brilliant.
I definitely want to speak to you about that. Definitely want to speak to you about that.
As a lender, we work very much with Mike and his team at Mayflower, and it's great to work with brokers that really understand the market and challenge our understanding. That's the key. We don't know everything, and that's the beauty of this. But we have a relationship where that challenge is gratefully received. We don't always agree, Mike, do we? But, you know, we always understand each other's viewpoint. But Mike and his team have developed our policy over time, and it will continue to develop. So we're very grateful for that.
Do you get that a lot, Mike? So you must have a fair bit of influence with the lenders you're working with, that you can actually, as Tony just said, you can influence a little bit of change because, you know, you understand it from the middle ground, Mark, and you know, you can push it for the customer almost.
Yeah, to be honest, it's the same with most lenders we work with, in the sense that we probably have a lot more knowledge, because the guys that are underwriting the cases are not usually even been through a self-build process. They don't understand the building process separately, in the sense of, you know, different types of construction mechanisms, how they're attached to the building, what sort of accreditations those have or don't have, how warranties work, and you know, building regulations. They obviously have an overview of how that is, and Karen's a good example. I've done self-build for years, but not every lender has got somebody of, you know, that experience on there. But so yeah, we do tend to try and have those conversations, really, and it's collaborative, Tony, isn't it? Really, works both ways to just give a better result for the end client. That's what matters.
I have a question just for my knowledge base. Any quick questions? I'm just keeping Mike for a little bit longer here because this is interesting. But yeah, guys, you got any questions? Pop in the chat room now while Mike's still here. And also, yeah, your case questions, we'll take those off when Mike leaves us. But one last question from me. The gentleman spoke very, very openly about, you know, the builders being, you know, the self builders being relatively affluent. Just to explain what your typical client is for yourselves. I would assume they were more the grand designs end, but I'm presuming there's some everyday. It's not just the affluent people. It's people who have got looked and gone, I want a house. I presumption on my standards, but maybe slightly younger people who've got a green agenda, perhaps want a more eco-friendly house or more economical house. So yeah, what is the typical customer like?
Our average customer last year was 45. Average loan was 427,000 with a GDV of about 750 to 800. So you'd say mid to high end, maybe. They're not necessarily first-time buyers. But that being said, we obviously do work with first-time builders, first-time buyers at the sort of lower end of the market space. But that was our average client last year. Definitely not the grand designs. We do get those, and they're lovely when we can, because everybody likes to see them and all that sort of stuff. But,
that's why I want to speak to you.
Yeah, and we've got some we do some amazing projects. Like it's awesome when you get to see them. But that's not the average build. You know, it's usually a 200 square meter to 250 square meter is the average size, obviously detached, and that sort of age range and loan size.
You said first-time buyers, but I would have presumed that's a market that perhaps we can push, bearing in mind that certainly Gen Zers that are coming through, if they're on, I know they're going to be on the higher end of the earning scale, but I presume that it'd be quite an enticing market if it was marketed to them. Or am I wrong? I don't know. Maybe you guys have a different opinion.
About 9% of our clients last year were first-time builders, first-time buyers. So that's not huge, but you know, there's a good chunk in there.
I think as help to build and right to build legislation is more understood, you'll see that go up.
Yeah.
But it's still in its infancy.
And that's definitely geared towards that end of the market, Tony. I just think Homes England haven't set that scheme up very well.
I agree. Yeah.
I don't think we're going to see much growth on that until after the general election. I don't think it's something that's going to be a priority until they've got that general election out of the way next year. Maybe we'll see a bit more when there's the next government, whoever that is, gets in and they can start affecting policy again. Mike, it's been really informative and really good to talk to you, actually. Really interesting. Really enjoyed that. I hope you'll come back as well. Mike, we'd love to have you on the podcast as well. So, yeah, do join us for podcasts if you're willing. Yeah. For those of you who don't know, SFI Not So Live podcast, Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, everywhere you get your podcasts, you can find us on there. Mike, do join us for that. But for today, thanks ever so much for joining us. I think from all of us, that was really interesting.
No, thanks
Mike.
Thanks, Mike. Speak soon.
How do I log off?
I'll check you out. Don't worry. See you later, Mike. Take care.
Yes.
Bye. Well, that was really good, wasn't it?
I've learned loads today. Yeah.
I wonder how quickly I can sell my house so I can build another one. But I don't know about you guys in the audience. Any comments? Pop it in the chat rooms. We need to hear your thoughts on it, because it's really important to us that these themes are designed around giving you education. So if there's anything you want us to talk about and any special areas you want us to dip into, then do let us know. But Holly, just a quick chance to talk about your products, really. Talk about self and customer products, and maybe analyze. I did try and pick it out. We didn't have a lot of time with them, but I did try and pick out the custom build element because it was the bit that I didn't know anything about when I first started talking to you guys. So maybe we can, maybe talk products first.
Yeah, so I know Tony sort of mentioned it, but the loan to value. So we have a product where we can lend up to 65% of the purchase price or land value, up to 100% of the build costs. That's in stage payments and arrears, and cannot exceed 75% of the gross development at any time throughout the build. And then you've got the 80% product. So you've got 80% of purchase price, 80% of build costs, and cannot exceed 80% of the GDV at any time. And with the product, we can do a lot of different types of construction methods. So huff houses, we can do, I know the downward we were talking about in the first half of the webinar too. So there's all these different ones, and it's not necessarily, we're not going to do a shipping container. That's not quite where we are with our self-builds. But, looking at the different properties, different types like passive house construction methods, and things like that, where you have to have, you even have to have a special cat flap for a passive house so it doesn't let the air out. But yeah, there's all different things that we can consider, and there's so much coming to market. They just had the Ideal Home exhibition in London for the last 2 weeks, and the different things that were there, the different opportunities, not just for construction wise, but what you can actually fit into your house to make it eco-friendly and things. So there's loads of different things for consumers to look at. And then from the custom build side, very similar structure with the stage payments. But what we're looking at is they're basically building a kind of almost like a flat pack house, really. The builders do it for them. You're on a service plot with utilities. It could be in a whole development, or it could just be, a couple of houses within there. And, we can look at different size developments, whether it be, 3 or 4 houses and you're all different, or it could be, on a site such as not Graven Hill, but same as Graven Hill sort of thing within the UK. So yeah, lots of different things.
It's really good. We've got a question in for Rachel before I put my next question to you. Do you do self-build for expats? Ultimately, the property will be let.
Not at this time. So it is for UK residential owner-occupier use only. We don't have within our side anything for expats.
Okay, great stuff.
But Rachel's a good question, and I have jotted it down. I will ask. Before we go on to Jade, just one other thing that kind of we're seeing a lot more of is obviously people buy a lot of property at auction, which they then want to knock down, rebuild, or whatever. That's one area that. Thanks, Mike. He's answered.
I'll plug you in a minute.
That's one area that we are quite happy with in doing a self-build rather than a bridge. So that is an option for people. It's a cheaper way of funding that development, provided they're going to live in it. Obviously, we don't fund development to sell. We are development to live in. That's the clear distinction. But I just thought I'd add that to Holly's expert roundup.
And just Rachel, just let you know, get in touch with Mike. That's what I'm going to say. It's all the plug you're getting, Mike, sitting in the background there. No, really, I really enjoyed that, actually, that whole session. I think it's such a learning curve. But Tony, we were talking on the podcast and actually about the event we went to on people's aspirations to be green. And I think this is a real strong market for that, isn't it? Because our housing stock is shocking in this country. We talked about it a lot. Time. This is a really good chance for us to up our game here, isn't it? And actually say, do you know what? I'm not going to wait for the government to build a load of brand new homes that actually aren't all that energy efficient or that useful. Go and build a little self-build or a custom build, I guess.
Exactly, and it's a really good way to challenge the status quo. Okay, particularly as Holly's mentioned around modern methods of construction, which our industry is still quite fearful of. Now we're we're at the more flexible end, but we'd like to do more of the flexible stuff. But surveyors, no fault of theirs, but haven't got comparables when they're surveying new construction methods to say whether it's a good bet for the lender. But we need to keep challenging that. We have to build more energy efficient homes, not only to live in but to produce. It isn't just about what we do once it's built. It's how do we build it? How do we make sure that we are doing the best there and reducing that build, that carbon footprint on the build. So that's one area where if we do more of this, we'll get more comfortable and ultimately it'll become easier.
Great stuff. Any more comments from you guys before I plug everything else? Because we always do a little plug at the end of everything else. But any more comments you want to get across before we disappear?
No, I
Holly,
think
just quickly, actually, we haven't seen you for a little while. Any new products in the offing for Saffron? Anything? Any recent updates, criteria changes? Anything we can just quickly plug for you here while we're here?
Yeah, so we temporarily withdrew from the market. I think it was last week, if not the week before, and then we have reintroduced some of our products. So I know that self-employed is still there. Owner-occupied rates, there's a few back on that. A JBSP product for first-time buyers. Our expat buy-to-lets there. So there's definitely a few, and we're slowly but surely returning. It's for us, it's just mainly being able to maintain service. Our turnaround times are good at the moment. We're just slightly delayed in our processing team, so we're just slowing traffic a little bit just to be able to catch up and make sure everybody stays within a good app to offer time.
Our biggest recent news is our large loan change. As I mentioned earlier, we are doing large loan self builds. You can source us up to 3 million at the rate that we charge, but we can do over 3 million, but it will be a bespoke rate. We've done that now across the whole product range. So residential buy to let up to 3 million, 80% loan to value, and that you'll find us on all sourcing systems up to that product. Again, for a residential or a buy to let, we can do over 3 million, but will be probably a bit of bespoking on the rate or the fee. So up to 80%, 3 million, and we've also increased up to 90% to £1 million. We were at 500, so we've doubled that as well. That's a big jump for us. We really want to support larger loans. We have the capacity and the experience to underwrite those deals. And since we launched, we've seen an increase in the amount of deals we're getting, but we'd love more. So please do get in touch with the team. I'm sure Holly will give the relevant website address and phone number now.
Yes, I can do. So it's saffronforintermediaries.co.uk. So saffronforintermediaries.co.uk, and our phone number to get through to the IST team. It's 01799 582 925, and there's a contact us button on the Saffron for Intermediaries website, and you can also do your BDM finder on there. So if you literally go to the contact us page, click BDM finder, you will then soon find out who by postcode is in your region. So you'll either be speaking to Simon, Lee, I honestly haven't forgotten the names. Jackie and Leslie. There we go. That's covering the region. God, they won't let me live that down.
I think some of them are watching as well, so God help you.
Yeah.
And just for everyone else, this webinar will be available tomorrow on the Saffron for Intermediaries YouTube channel. If you just search for Saffron for Intermediaries in YouTube and Google, you'll come up with that channel. Do follow the channel because it'll give you updates on when we upload any new webinars. Feel free to share it with your colleagues. Anybody you think will benefit from it. There's a lot of learnings in here, and we're really keen to get it shared. So when the link goes out, just pop on, have a look. It will be up tomorrow. Just another reminder, SFI Not So Live are very successful. I keep saying that now. Podcast is doing well. It's flying. We had a brilliant one just come out. It was aggregated over the weekend. So there's a brand new episode out now. And we had Richard Merritt and Anna Sagar from Mortgage Solutions with us. So if you want to look at that, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And we'll be back first Tuesday of May with our next webinar. And Tony, what's our topic?
Green.
I don't think you're going to
I
remember.
have to think about that for a second, but no.
I saw your face and thought, oh God, I've tripped him up
Yeah,
here.
yeah, no, I was just reaching into the depths of my mind. I'm actually looking at a green wall, so I should know, shouldn't I? My wall is green.
So yeah, so all things green. We've got some great guests in, and hopefully we're still to confirm we should have someone from the Green Finance Institute, and we will have some experts in the field. So do join us for that first week in May, so the first Tuesday in May, and we'll get the link sent out to you in the next week or so. So from us today, thanks so much for joining us, and that's a goodbye from us.
Thanks, guys.
See you next
Take
month.
care.
Bye, everyone.